What's up, Night Owls? Steely here, back with another video, and today I'm going to be going over how to build encounters in your D&D game. Building encounters for your party can get increasingly difficult over time as they get new and more dramatic powers. It becomes harder and harder to tailor encounters against your party that will be meaningful and that they'll actually enjoy. The most important rule when building encounters against your party is to not counter your party's abilities. One thing that I've seen a lot of DMs do when they start struggling with certain abilities is they'll start tailoring encounters against those abilities, and they'll try to trivialize that ability so that the party will get more out of a specific combat. Do not do this. Do not trivialize a character's abilities. Do not trivialize a character's abilities. Do not trivialize a character's abilities. Character's abilities trivialize. Do not trivialize a character's abilities ever. Don't do it. I don't understand why DMs do this. I see it all the time and it blows my mind. You want to build encounters to challenge your players' abilities, not to counter them, not to trivialize them. Pop quiz, we're gonna do a little check on learning. Let's say your party just hit 5th level and you have a spellcaster that just fell in love with their fireball. They use it every combat and you're struggling to come up with an encounter to sort of deal with that fireball. Do you A, put them against one big monster with a ton of health, that way they don't do AoE damage with their fireball? B, put them against a spellcaster with a dozen counter spells so they can't get the fireball off? Or C, send wave after wave of flammable enemy at your party? The answer is C. No, I know what you're gonna say. That would make the encounter too easy. No, what you wanna do is stretch the limits of their favorite abilities like fireball. Let me give you an example. Scarecrows would be perfect for this example because they're vulnerable to fire and you have an excuse to mass produce them. So let's say that your party is in a castle courtyard and it's being overrun by scarecrows. You can have one big group of scarecrows moving up to attack the party from the front, and you can have two smaller groups of scarecrows moving in to attack from the sides. So what this does is, rather than restrict that fireball by having a single enemy so there's no AoE damage, or a spellcaster that just stops the fireball completely, you can give that player that loves their fireball options. They can either hit that big ball of scarecrows getting more targets, or they can protect the back line by hitting one of the other ones. And the party can do the same thing by tactfully preparing for a fireball. If they're not an evoker that can sculpt the spell out, they may need to use some kind of tactics to group the scarecrows together for that fireball, while also trying to protect themselves from the incoming wave of flame that's about to happen. I hope this example illustrates my point without being too simple. Keep in mind that all we've done here is just added a bunch of scarecrows that come in waves. You can also add one big enemy or a bunch of smaller flyers to harass your party while the wizard or the sorcerer or your spellcaster is dealing with those scarecrows. And this sort of creates this dynamic fight rather than a restrictive one. Which brings me to my next point. Numbers are superior to a singular enemy in almost every example. The problem with having a singular enemy without smaller ones to help it is that all of your party's abilities and damage are getting funneled into the same creature, and it will drop fast. The only way to sort of counteract that is to artificially inflate their AC so that they get hit less, their saves so that the spells don't work, or their health so that they're constantly beating on this sort of target dummy. None of those are fun. The party is going to feel like their abilities aren't doing anything. And you want their abilities to progress the fight. So back to that example with the scarecrows. Once the scarecrows are dealt with, you can progress the fight to the next stage. And this is sort of the key to designing these encounters around their abilities, is have stages where these abilities will stand out. If it wasn't already obvious from those last two examples, you need to know your players' abilities. You need to know what they're capable of. I've seen so many games die, and I hear players tell me all the time about the highest level that they've ever gotten is usually between 5th and 10th. And that's because DMs just don't know how to deal with those 5th level abilities, or those abilities, those big power spikes that come. They don't know how to build encounters for it. You need to know what those abilities are and what they can do. 3rd level spells are powerful. You need to be ready for it. You need to know what those spellcasters are choosing and why, and you need to know what those spells do. A 5th level monk is going to try to stun the boss of your fight. You need to be ready for that. You need to check whether or not it's immune to stun, and if it's not immune to stun, you need to know its con. You just need to be ready for that monk to run up and stun your boss to death. Notice that I haven't talked about CR, and it's because I feel like CR is completely useless. I've never even factored in CR when it comes to building an encounter. I mostly look at the damage and the abilities of the monster and put them side by side with the party that I'm running. The challenge rating system would be great if parties had a consistent power level across levels. But as you know, some classes are just stronger than others across all levels, and there's just no way of knowing the power of a party based off level alone. It's going to be at class makeup and spell choices and feat choices and things and class features and things like that. The next piece of advice I have for you is add spellcasters. This is especially important after the 5th level mark, because this is when those power spikes are going to happen and class features are going to go crazy. So what you want to do is add spellcasters to sort of flavor that up. Remember I mentioned the monk stunning? If you have spellcasters that are constantly buffing your boss, the monk can move their stuns to stop the concentration effects. If your fighter or your paladin are particularly hard to put damage on because of their full plate, save for half spells are guaranteed damage. Even if they pass their saving throw, they're going to take damage from a single 1st level burning hands or a fireball. The slow spell can absolutely devastate a party, and it will force your party to focus on whatever's concentrating on that spell. But let's do a real quick recap before I go over my final point. Know your party's abilities. Build your encounters to accentuate those abilities, not counter them. Use spellcasters not only to theme a fight, but to make it more interesting. Give your boss minions. And the final point, mock battles. If you take everything that I just said in this video and applied it here for mock battles, you will always have the best combat encounters. Run through an encounter as your party and use the abilities that they love to use. This is also great for when you want to distribute loot. Trying out the new magic items, scrolls, potions, whatever, in specific encounters throughout a session when you do these mock battles can also give you an idea of what's fun and what isn't. The best way to build a mock battle from the ground up is to just have your party wailing on a placeholder enemy, just sort of this phantom that they beat on, so you can track the amount of damage they can put out and the amount of turns that they can do it. Once you have all this information, it's easy to split up this phantom enemy into multiples and then start giving them abilities for monsters that you would like to use. And before you know it, you have a full-fledged encounter. I can't stress how important it is to be paying attention to the things that your players do and their characters do and the outcomes that they expect to happen. This is by far the easiest way to set expectations and challenges for your upcoming sessions. And just by paying attention to that growth and the things that they do and the choices that they make, and the plans that they have for leveling up, you can stay one step ahead of everything that the party can actually accomplish, and knowing their abilities is key to building meaningful encounters. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, you know how YouTube works. Hit those buttons, leave a comment down below. Let me know what I missed. Let me know the methods that you use when you build encounters that I didn't cover here. I know there's things like environment and adjusting monsters' stat blocks so that they're closer to the party's capabilities. Those are both things that could be done in an entire video, and I just didn't really touch on in this one. So be on the lookout for that. I would like to do a video on those things. So let me know in the comments what I missed, things like that. And if you want to be a part of this D&D community, make sure you join the Discord. Link is in the description. Come by, ask questions, let me know what you think. And as always, I'll see you at sundown.